Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hi, and welcome to episode 222 of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, Executive Editor of Total Retail. Joining me today is Mike Del Pozzo, who is the Chief Customer Officer and Senior Vice President of Sales at Frito-Lay, a leading snack food brand and a division of PepsiCo. We're going to be discussing Frito-Lay's work to create better experiences for its consumers, both through its retail partners as well as its direct-to-consumer sales channels. Thanks for joining me, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So to start, I think most in our audience are familiar with the Frito-Lay brand, but maybe you could tell us briefly about the company and your role within the organization.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I think everybody probably has had our snacks at one point or another and hopefully has them in their pantry at home today. But obviously we are a convenience foods division of PepsiCo. What folks may not know is we've been selling snacks for over 80 years. Last year we sold over $16 billion in snacks and continue to be a pretty high growth engine for the company and certainly for the category. Folks know most of our brands. We're proud that we've got not only a big portfolio that stems across our core brands and into new kind of trendier brands, but our core continues to deliver over $1 billion in annual retail sales across each of them. So brands like Cheetos, Doritos, Lay's, Ruffles, Tostitos. Also, we've got over 60,000 associates. I think most people know we're a fairly sophisticated direct store delivery system. And I say that for two reasons. One, because that's a big part of who we are as an organization, how we get products to our consumer. But also, as you think about the discussion today, it's important in terms of how our assets are aligned with the future of retail. So we have 17,000 routes out on the road every day, and we make more than 500,000 retail store visits each week.
Yeah, I was going to ask about those distribution channels, so thanks for giving us some context there to start the conversation. So let's talk a little bit about the market and shifting consumer behaviors and how that's impacted the way that Frito-Lay is marketing and selling its products.
Yeah, sure. And real quick, I'll tell you, for me, I have responsibility for kind of our sales and commercialization. And so when we talk retail and partnership, for us, it continues to be more about the consumer and how we reach the consumer, less about the channels in which we serve them through. And so you'll hear me talk today a little bit more channel agnostic than we historically probably would. So as Chief Customer Officer, I lead sales strategy, planning, and commercialization. And so that includes not just our traditional retail partners you'd be familiar with, but our up and down the street businesses and our away from home businesses like airports, hotels, theaters, restaurants, etc. So your question on consumer behaviors, I'll speak to the consumer trends first. Really, there's a few key areas we're really seeing evolve, both just as a function of consumers evolving and also as a function of retail evolving and consumers becoming more demanding for where they snack, when they snack, etc. One is functional snacking, what we refer to it as. And I think folks know this, but for those that don't, 3 square meals a day anymore is becoming less and less common. And we see on average, there's 6 to 8 snacking occasions every day. So a big shift in what consumers expect from snacks. And so you'd say, well, boy, that's great for a company like Frito-Lay, because you've got 94% household penetration, but it also puts a lot of pressure on us as an organization to make sure that we've got the right products for the right occasions. And specifically, this functional snacking is, products being consumed are expanding, so making sure we've got them for the right occasions, places, and times. The other we see is snacks on the go, so somewhat related to functional, but more just the idea of consumers being much more time crunched, living more on the go. So they're expecting snacks to show up on much more portable and convenient locations. And that's, put a lot on us to ensure we're reaching consumers at all their snacking occasions and how we market our products. So we're seeing on the go be a big part of that. Small bag capacity implications for us has become much more critical. Whereas, in the US, typically we used to be a big bag market. Over in Europe, you saw small bags evolve much quicker. We're getting there now, and that's putting a very different approach to how we think about innovation and our core products. And then, another we're seeing is global influences on snacking. It's kind of inspiring different ingredient trends. And that's, things like plant protein sources, chickpeas, peas, things like that. You've probably seen a lot of our innovations either through ground up portfolio expansion or even through acquisition in some of these spaces. But global influences have really put a new kind of spin on snacking. And then finally, I'd say the last is trend we're seeing is this. I'd call it snacking for me. So, similar to functional, but more about personalization. So consumers that actually want snacks that are super relevant to them. And that puts a lot on a pressure on us to ensure that we're offering snacks for every type of consumer. So personalization across products, across pricing, and our delivery mechanisms as well.
So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned the retail partners, obviously quite expansive. How is Frito-Lay, working with its retail partners to ensure that the end consumer's experience with the brand, whether it be in a grocery store, convenience store, whatever the case may be, they're getting that, quality experience with the brand and leaving with a positive impression of Frito-Lay? What are you doing? Because you're obviously not controlling that in-store environment. How are you working with your retail partners to solve that?
Yeah, great. Well, great question. I think I would answer it in kind of how if we take a look at omni-channel holistically, and I think this is what you're kind of poking at, which is, experience of our products for our end consumer and ensuring we get them there at the right time in a very different environment. I would say we look back at what really kept omni-channel and grocery from exploding, which now it certainly is rapid growth, but it's taken a little bit to get to this tipping point that we feel like it's reaching. User experience is one, and so we work with retail partners to ensure there's improvements. And I wouldn't say it's just online sites and things like that. It really is the ability to personalize and deliver on that promise of our products through whatever vehicles consumers want to see. And so the user experience is a big one we've put a lot of focus on. The other is capacity and overall availability. Ensuring that our product, because the trends are so rapid. I live in Dallas, in Plano, Texas here. If you think about this area, 3-4 years ago, there was really little to no online grocery activity. What you had on shelf was your option in snacking. And so, we were limited to that. Now you think about, we have Walmart, Kroger, Target, Albertsons. We've got Amazon Fresh and Instacart options. And so all these different vehicles have allowed us to really get the right product at the end consumer at the right time, however they want it. And that's another way we work with our retail partners to ensure we use data to have the right products at shelf at the right time. And then the last, and this is probably more internally focused at the infancy stage, but now is becoming a rapid partnership space, and that's in supply chain. And it really is a key piece of how omni-channel comes to life. And so we're working, trying to work more and more upfront with retailers to, calculated investments in driving more supply chain efficiency. So whether that's automated warehouse buildings, et cetera. And, the reason I bring that up is I think we feel like the more we partner as an industry overall, the more efficiency we can find to ensure we deliver on what is a rapidly changing consumer dynamic.
I'm going to dig into that one point around data, Mike, a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned having the right product in the right places at the right times, and how you're leveraging data analytics to help you do that, technology to help you do that. Maybe you want to go just touch on that a little bit more in terms of what you mean by that.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I mean, there's a couple spaces I hit on. One is we're really using it for what you'd say used to be table stakes, so trends. But what we're doing is getting a much more predictive analytics that relies on those data. So where we used to go look at data and say, okay, what product sold? How do I influence planogram, permanent and temporary inventory, all that? We're much more predictive now. So we use data building on AI and overall intellectual capabilities that we have, combined with our retailer partner data to ensure that we've got the right products on the right shelf at the right time. And I think for us, that's been a big advantage, particularly as you think about that coupled with our go-to-market system, where we have routes out on the street all the time, but we've got different consumer trends and behaviors in any given geography. The other is I think the data has really helped us understand what each consumer wants and really, how to effectively interact with them in a more authentic way. And so, to do that, we've had to rely on much deeper insights, that used to require us to take months to do. Now we can test and learn and market in a very short period of time and adapt quickly. And lastly, and this is probably tying it all together, and one that I'm most excited about is what we call kind of media to shelf. And if you think about, even 5-10 years ago, or even a couple years ago, you'd maybe at home and you turn on the TV and see one of our commercials for a brand like, Lay's potato chips, and then you'd pick up your circular and you'd see Doritos in the circular, your retail circular, and then you go to the store and there'd be a print ad for Cheetos, and then you walk in the store and you see a Tostitos display. Just a complete disconnect in terms of what consumers would expect. We've gotten much more intentional and disciplined about how to leverage efficiencies in data and technology to ensure that consumers really get the most out of their experience from media to shelf, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. So I'm going to hit on a couple more areas that you mentioned in the previous answer in terms of, first, supply chain being one of them, and then e-commerce as a growth opportunity for grocery and CPG. So let's start a little bit with e-commerce. So you mentioned kind of the online options that have sprung up for grocery and CPG in terms of e-commerce. What is Frito-Lay doing now or looking to do in the future to kind of take advantage of that opportunity and kind of the changing marketplace for online grocery and CPG?
Yeah, well, a couple things. I think, I should probably kind of share how we define this space overall, omni-channel, e-commerce. At the end of the day, for us, it's all about accessibility and relevancy. And I say that in its most intentional usage. We think about consumers today, they really don't care how they get a product, where they get it. They just want it, right? And so as opposed to thinking about some of the old traditional guardrails in how we market products or get products to consumer, we're trying to just say we want to be the most relevant for the consumer, and we want to be accessible at all times. And so that's how we've thought about our products. If you just think about almost a market, I think you guys are in Philadelphia, you draw a circle around Philadelphia, and you're much more agnostic to how the product gets where it is. If you want one of our snacks at any given time, then we want to ensure they're available. And so, in the past, that meant primarily kind of owning points of interruption in the store through displays and placements. Today, it's through much better media, targeted activation, etc. The other thing I'd say is we've really done a much better job partnering with our retailers to ensure that we're relevant as well. And so, we've expanded into places we haven't been before, leveraging our go-to-market system in order to do that, really always starting with the consumer in mind. And so for us, the question on that accessibility and relevance is just, how do I ensure I'm building a business and prioritizing spaces that will really return on the consumers, over the long horizon.
And with that, with that growth and that accessibility that you talk about, relevance, the importance of kind of the order fulfillment, those back-end operations to become even more paramount. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about, and you alluded to this earlier, some of the innovations that Frito-Lay has put into place in that area in terms of order fulfillment.
Yeah, and I should probably preface, when we talk innovation, we really are talking innovation in its most holistic sense from an end-to-end perspective. So, this environment today requires us to, include in innovation, include investment in brands and packaging, capabilities from supply chain and go-to-market. And then obviously we talked a little bit already, data and analytics, across all facets of the business to ensure we're, faster, stronger, and better together. Specifically to, the operations side and fulfillment side, we've done really a lot. I mean, one, I think for us is using our system, our go-to-market system, to ensure we have the right product on the right route, if you will, at the right time. We've even got, markets where maybe, it doesn't make sense for us to get to, or it's trickier for us to get to. And so we've leveraged a business we have called Snacks to You, which gets us our products to small businesses in a very quick manner, direct, leveraging a number of different go-to-market fulfillment systems. And the beauty is, as you know, we own our supply chain really from seed to shelf. So that includes the DSD system I talked about, and our ability to control distribution points end to end. The other thing we're doing is really making a lot of investments in the efficiency side that you would expect, automated warehouse solutions, increasing capacity in some of those trends I talked about earlier, and then really development of kind of new last mile solutions, whether that be through our own system or through third party. And, that really also comes back to the discussion on working with retail partners. If you think about where a lot of retail is going, whether it's dark stores, MFCs, some of these sheds that are standing up, it requires us to think about totes in our warehouses. Do they fit into the retailer's fulfillment model, so that we don't get too far down a path and we're digging a tunnel and retailers are digging one. We look up in a few years and realize we could have driven a lot of efficiency out of the system. So really working with retail partners to align the most efficient way to deliver snacks from our distribution centers and warehouses to their stores or to wherever consumers are is what we're focused against.
And then my final question, Mike, is kind of looking ahead in your role on the leadership team and the organization as a whole at Frito-Lay. Where are you focusing your attention as you kind of look to improve the service that you're giving to existing consumers, as well as you look to continue to grow and expand?
Yeah, well, great question. I think a couple of areas. I think overall, we're focused on this omni-channel journey. And I know the term's overused. That's why I talk relevancy and accessibility. That's priority one for us, I would say. If we know our brands are already super relevant for consumers. They're in 94% of U.S. households. We've got great brands. We've got great marketing. We've got an awesome go-to-market. But ensuring that we don't lose track of all these consumer dynamics that are changing and that we're accessible and relevant is probably first and foremost. I think the other is in the area of really innovation from product and packaging perspective, is probably the impact of the overall omni-channel journey, and that we're really focused on. And another we didn't talk about in this session, but I would say is solving for impulse. And, we used to talk about impulse as, hey, I need, a CSD or a snack at checkout. And we actually think omnichannel has created a new natural tailwind for us if we get in front of it to drive impulse in a different way. And there's several examples. One is just leveraging, things that are relevant to consumers online. We've done some testing and some product pages with e-com retailers online where, consumers would go on and they would select a number of items, call it, say guacamole, tomatoes, onions, cheese, and we would know they probably were creating a 7-layer dip, and we'd flag a Tostitos ad on there. That's impulse to us. We talk about our products that are relevant for, direct to colleges, universities, military. That is impulse to us and our ability to create kind of virtual ads and bundles for that specific occasion or that consumer. We think about subscription services on brands like Gatorade or our multi-pack. That's impulse. So really this idea of being relevant on an impulse perspective is another area that we're really close to as we build out our plan.
Is that mostly taking place on Frito-Lay's different social channels, Mike?
It is on our social channels, and it also is directly through a lot of our our partnerships as we collectively build partnerships with retail, as we use our fulfillment models, we're maximizing a lot of the learnings on what consumers want to build those out depending on retailers' capabilities.
Great. Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank Mike Del Pozzo of Frito-Lay for joining me today. Please check out our podcast channel page, mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, but make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. Also, please take the time to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and I look forward to you joining us on the next episode of Total Retail Talks.